You know that feeling when you're caught in a moment you thought was private, completely, painfully alone, only to find out you weren't? Yeah, that was me. And the person who walked in on me? My straight, football-playing college roommate Liam. I didn't even hear the door open. Let me back up. Liam and I had been living together for a semester and a half. We got paired through the school's roommate assignment portal, one of those random matches where you fill out a basic form and hope for the best. I was expecting a chill nerd or maybe some artsy guy into film photography or poetry. Instead, I got Liam. Quarterback. Tall. Easy smile. Tattoo on his forearm that looked like it should have hurt. The kind of guy who walked through campus like he didn't even realize half the people were staring at him. But he was nice. Friendly, even. Not in a fake, overly polite way, but in that easy, grounded way that made people gravitate toward him. We weren't close, but we weren't strangers either. We shared a rhythm, late-night ramen, shared playlists, the occasional Mario Kart tournament when we both needed a break from school. And I liked him. Quietly, painfully. I kept it to myself, obviously. I wasn't an idiot. Liam had girls over sometimes, never anything loud or obnoxious, but enough to remind me exactly where the lines were. He was kind, sure, but he wasn't interested. Not in me. Not in guys. I told myself I was okay with that. I wasn't. So that night? The night it happened? It was a Thursday. Liam had texted earlier that he'd be at the gym late. Something about meeting with his strength coach, and then grabbing food with a teammate. I assumed I had at least 2 hours to myself. It was one of those weeks where everything felt too heavy. Midterms, family stress, some dumb text from an ex that left my stomach in knots. I just needed to let off steam, to feel something, to get out of my own head. So yeah, I got in bed, put on my headphones, slid under the covers, and I started touching myself. It wasn't even supposed to be a big thing, just me, in my head, thinking about things I never said out loud, fantasies I'd never admit. And yeah, some of them were about Liam. His back after a shower. That time he walked around shirtless, towel slung low, asking where his deodorant went. The casual way he'd stretch at his desk, arms overhead, shirt riding up just enough to drive me a little insane. I didn't even hear the key turn, didn't hear the door swing open. But I did hear Liam's voice, low and surprised, but not angry. Shit, sorry. I looked up, hand still, halfway down my briefs, and there he was, standing in the doorway with a brown takeout bag in one hand and a stunned look on his face. He wasn't moving. Neither was I. For half a second I expected him to bolt, maybe laugh, maybe apologize and slam the door. That's what most guys would do, right? Especially straight ones. But Liam didn't. He stepped inside. Quietly, gently closed the door behind him. And then he locked it. My heart was pounding. Like chest thudding, breath catching, panic mode pounding. I yanked the blanket up so fast it practically slapped me in the face, scrambling to sit up, covering myself like I'd just been caught committing a felony. My cheeks were on fire. I couldn't even look at him. Liam, shit. I thought you were going to be out later. I didn't. I stammered, eyes darting everywhere but at him. It's okay, he said. Those 2 words stopped me cold. Not because he said them, but because of how he said them. Calm. Soft. Like he wasn't shocked. Like he wasn't mad. Like he wasn't leaving. He set the takeout bag down on his desk, turned around slowly, and just stood there, watching me. I came back early, he said, shrugging a little, like that explained everything. Sorry I didn't text. I didn't know what to do with my hands. They were just frozen. One still gripping the blanket, the other halfway buried under it. I wasn't trying to... Jesus, I'm sorry, Liam. This is so incredibly embarrassing. Dude, he said, and this time his voice was even softer. You don't have to apologize. That made me finally look at him. He didn't look grossed out. He didn't look amused. He looked thoughtful, like he was still figuring something out in real time. Seriously, he added, stepping forward, slow like I was a startled animal he didn't want to scare off. I'm not mad. It's your room too. I swallowed hard. It's not just that you walked in, I said, voice low. It's that I was thinking about you. There it was, laid out. I thought that would be the moment he froze, the moment I ruined everything. But he didn't flinch. His brow furrowed just slightly. You were? I nodded, gripping the blanket tighter. You're not exactly hard to think about. He let out this little breath of a laugh. Not mocking, not cruel, just kind of surprised. And then he stepped closer. What were you thinking? He asked. And I swear to God, the floor might as well have dropped out beneath me. Liam, no, it's okay, he said quickly. I want to know. He was standing right at the edge of my bed now, still in his hoodie and joggers, still looking every bit the straight college roommate who was supposed to walk out of that room and never speak of this again. But instead, he sat down, not far, right next to me. Look, he said, turning slightly toward me. I've been thinking about stuff lately, too. I blinked. Stuff? He rubbed the back of his neck, a habit I'd seen 100 times when he was nervous or unsure. About guys? About you. I didn't breathe. He sighed, glancing away. I don't know what it means, all right? I'm still figuring it out. But I've caught myself looking, wondering. And when I walked in and saw you and realized you were thinking about me, he trailed off, then looked back at me. It didn't freak me out. It kinda did the opposite. My brain short-circuited. The opposite? He nodded slowly. Yeah. Then, without asking, without a single warning, Liam reached out and gently touched my wrist, just above the blanket. His hand was warm, careful, his fingers wrapped loosely around mine. Do you want me to stay? He asked, and there it was. The question I never thought I'd hear from him. I opened my mouth, but I didn't need to speak. I just nodded. I don't think I'll ever forget the way he looked at me in that moment. Liam wasn't smirking. He wasn't nervous. He just looked steady, focused, like he was taking this seriously. Like he wasn't going anywhere. The pressure of his fingers around my wrist wasn't forceful, but it was intentional. I could feel every beat of my pulse beneath his thumb. He must have felt it too. Racing. Wild. Can I? He hesitated, eyes flicking to the blanket. Do you want me to touch you? I didn't move for a second. My brain was still trying to catch up. You don't have to, I whispered. You don't have to pretend. I know I'm not pretending, he cut in. I don't know exactly what I am right now, but I know I want this. That quiet confidence in his voice knocked something loose in me. I let the blanket fall back slightly, just enough for him to see that I wasn't bluffing. That everything I'd felt, everything he'd walked in on, was still very, very real. He looked down, eyes lingering, for just a second before he met my gaze again. I've never done anything with a guy, he said, his voice low, but I've thought about it, not with just anyone. My breath caught. With me? Yeah, he said simply. He moved closer. Our knees touched, and then his hand slid up my arm. Slowly, cautiously, like he was checking for signs of resistance. There weren't any. I leaned into his touch without thinking. I kept wondering what it would feel like, he murmured, being close to you like this. I could barely speak. Liam, his hand came up to cup the side of my face, thumb brushing along my cheekbone. He was watching me closely, as if waiting for me to tell him to stop. I didn't. So he kissed me. It was tentative at first, like he was testing the ground beneath his feet. But it didn't take long before it deepened. I leaned into him, fingers clutching the front of his hoodie like I was afraid he'd disappear. But he didn't pull away. He didn't flinch. He just kissed me harder, breathing, quickening, body pressing just a little closer. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing like we'd run a mile. He rested his forehead against mine. I have no idea what this means, he said, his voice rough, but I don't want it to stop. It doesn't have to. A small smile curved on his lips. Then tell me what you want. I bit my bottom lip, heart thudding. I want you to stay. For real. Not just tonight. Not just this. He looked at me for a long time, and then he nodded. Okay, he said softly. Then I'm not going anywhere. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. But weirdly, they didn't fall apart either. Liam stayed. We didn't rush into anything dramatic. There was no tearful confession or sudden, overwhelming romance. It was slower than that, quieter. The kind of shift you only noticed if you were paying close attention. And I was paying very close attention. The next morning, I half expected him to be distant, weird, maybe even regretful. But when I woke up, he was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, shirtless, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. Except when he looked over and saw me watching him, he smiled. "Morning," he said. "Hey." He stretched, muscles flexing under the sunlight that spilled through the blinds. "You want coffee?" That was it. No tension, no awkwardness. He got up, pulled on some sweatpants, and wandered to the kitchen like he hadn't just turned my world upside down. And somehow, that was worse than him being cold. It meant he was okay, comfortable, which made me wonder, had he been thinking about this longer than I realized? Later that day, while we sat shoulder to shoulder on the couch watching reruns of some dumb baking show, I finally worked up the nerve to ask, "So are we going to talk about it?" He didn't pretend not to know what I meant. He paused, eyes still on the TV. "Yeah, I figured we should." I turned to face him. "Was it just a one-time thing? Like curiosity?" Liam leaned back against the couch and looked at me. "I don't know. I don't think it was just curiosity. I think I've been avoiding this part of myself for a long time." I didn't say anything. I didn't want to interrupt him. "I've always dated girls," he said slowly. "I always assumed that was it. But I've noticed things, small things, for a while now, especially since we moved in together." He glanced at me, his expression serious now. "You were different. I liked being around you, and sometimes I caught myself thinking about what it would feel like to touch you, be with you. But I didn't know what to do with those thoughts." "You never said anything," I murmured. "I didn't know how," he admitted. "And I didn't want to make it weird. But when I walked in on you, I don't know. Something just clicked." I exhaled slowly. "You're not freaking out?" "I mean, yeah, a little," he said with a small smile. "But not in the way you probably think. I'm not regretting it. I'm just trying to figure out what this means. For me. For us." There was a pause. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not even a little." That seemed to settle something in him. He nodded, looking relieved. "Okay, so then, can we see where this goes?" I smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." And just like that, a new kind of rhythm started between us. Still roommates, still friends. But now, something more. Something real. From the outside, nothing changed. We still went to class. Still passed each other in the hallway, tossing sarcastic one-liners. Still played video games late into the night, our legs stretched out on the coffee table, our empty takeout containers stacking higher than our ambitions. But inside our dorm, behind a locked door, things were different. It started with the little things. He began brushing past me more than necessary, resting his hand on my shoulder when he asked what I wanted for dinner, sitting just a little closer when we watched movies. And always, glancing at me like he was trying to memorize every reaction I gave him. And me? I was trying not to come apart every time he looked at me like that. One night, about a week after everything started, he came back from practice, sweaty and exhausted. I was sitting on my bed, textbook open, pretending to read. He dropped his gym bag with a thud, peeled off his damp shirt, and ran a hand through his hair. "You busy?" he asked. "Just pretending I'm passing this class." He grinned, crossed the room, and sat on my bed without asking. "Then you're free." "For what?" He didn't answer. He just leaned in and kissed me. It was familiar now, the way he kissed. Slow and careful, but not hesitant. Liam never did anything halfway. Even when he was unsure, he was in it, with all of himself. This kiss was no different. He crawled onto the bed, hovering over me as I fell back against the pillows, the textbook forgotten somewhere near my knees. His lips moved with more purpose this time, more pressure. His hands braced on either side of my shoulders like he was scared of crushing me. "Is this okay?" he murmured against my mouth. "Yes." I breathed. "God, yes." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. "I think about this all the time now," he admitted. "Yeah?" he nodded. "Like during practice, in the locker room, when I'm lying in bed at night. My heart was racing. I didn't think I'd want this, he went on, but now I can't stop. My hands slid under his shirt. He hadn't even changed out of his practice shorts, and his skin was still warm from training. He drew in a sharp breath when my fingers brushed his ribs. "You sure you're not just caught up in the idea?" I asked. Liam shook his head. "I've had ideas before. This is different." He pressed his forehead to mine. "I want you, not just the physical part. You." That hit me like a freight train. He hadn't said anything like that before. Not with that kind of certainty. I reached up, cupped the back of his neck and kissed him again. Deeper this time. I didn't care about the sweat or the textbooks or the fact that we could have been caught. None of that mattered. All that mattered was him, here, now, with me, staying, and meaning it. One of the strangest parts wasn't how good it felt. It was how easy it became. Liam wasn't tentative anymore. Not behind closed doors. We found a rhythm, one that no one else noticed. To the world, we were the same. Just two roommates sharing a dorm, hitting classes, showing up to intramurals, laughing at stupid memes. But to me, everything had shifted. Like the way he started brushing his teeth next to me in the morning and bumping my shoulder like it meant something, or how we'd lie in our beds at night, me pretending to scroll through my phone while he stared at the ceiling, until one of us quietly got up and slid into the other's bed without a word. It wasn't just about anything physical. We didn't even get close to that at first. It was more about the space we created. The way he'd lie on his side, arm around my waist, nose resting against the back of my neck. How his breath would slow as he fell asleep, always touching me, always close. One morning, I woke up before him. The sun was slipping through the blinds in these broken gold lines, and I turned my head to see him there. Mouth slightly open, arm still draped across me like it belonged there. I watched him sleep for a while, not in a creepy way, just in a quiet, stunned kind of awe, because this wasn't a dream. He was here, in my bed, and he had chosen to be. But outside of that bed, things stayed undefined. We didn't talk labels, didn't post pictures. We weren't trying to be something we weren't. I didn't expect him to announce it to the whole world. But still, I wondered, was he telling anyone? Did he see this as a phase? One afternoon, a group of us were walking back from class, Liam tossing a football between his hands as we bantered about a presentation that had gone completely off the rails. "So what are you doing Friday?" one of our friends asked him. He shrugged. "Not sure yet." "You should come to Bella's party," another guy said. "She said you could bring someone," Liam smirked. "Yeah? Yeah, she mentioned your name specifically." There was this beat, a small silence in the group. And I didn't expect him to say anything. I figured he'd laugh it off like always. Maybe flirt back a little just to keep things light. But instead, he glanced at me. Just a split second, then said, "I might already have plans." No one caught the glance. No one questioned it. But I felt it, deep in my chest. Later that night, when we were back in our room, he dropped his bag, stretched, and said, "You want to skip that party?" "Yeah," I said. "Definitely." He came over, leaned down, and kissed me. Just a soft press of lips. Nothing wild. But it left me breathless. He pulled back and grinned. "I'd rather stay here with you." A few weeks passed, and I started to notice something. Liam wasn't just more comfortable with me. He was starting to be more comfortable with himself, too. He stopped making jokes that deflected. Stopped acting like the little moments between us didn't mean anything. And one night, when we were both lying on his bed, tangled up, my head on his chest, he just said it, out of nowhere. "I used to think being with a guy would make me someone else." I looked up at him. "But it doesn't," he continued. "I still like football. I'm still terrible at doing laundry. I still eat like a raccoon in a vending machine. Nothing's changed, except now I sleep better." I smiled, resting my chin on his chest. "Because of me?" He rolled his eyes, but his hand slid around my waist. "Yeah, dumbass. You." That night we didn't do anything particularly wild. We just lay there, slow and quiet, until I drifted off with his heartbeat in my ear. I woke up hours later to him brushing hair out of my face. "I think my mom suspects something," he said softly. That got my attention. "What makes you say that?" "She asked me if I'd been seeing anyone. I told her no, but she said I sounded different. Happier. I sat up slightly. Is that a bad thing? He shook his head. No. I want to tell her. I'm just not sure how. I watched him in the half-light. This guy who used to flinch any time a moment felt too real. Now he was talking about coming out to his mom. You don't have to rush, I said. I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me, eyes soft. I know. And he didn't wait any longer. The next weekend, he FaceTimed her while I was at the library. I didn't ask what he said. I didn't need to, because when I walked in, he looked up at me from the couch, phone still in hand, and smiled. She says hi, I blinked. Your mom? He nodded. She wants to meet you, eventually. My knees almost buckled. Holy shit, Liam. I know, he said. I didn't think I'd get here either. He stood up and crossed the room, wrapping his arms around me without hesitation. No nerves. No shame. I don't want to hide it anymore, he whispered. Not from her, not from anyone. You sure? He pulled back, looked me right in the eye. I walked in on you that night, thinking I'd catch something private. I didn't expect it to change everything. But it did. And I don't want to walk out on it. Not now. Not ever. And just like that, I knew we were real. Not some secret. Not some experiment. Not some quiet thing that only lived behind a locked dorm room door. But real. Us. It didn't happen overnight, but the change was obvious. Liam started holding my gaze a little longer in public. Brushed my hand when no one was looking. Once, he reached over in the middle of a study group and stole my pen just to tease me, except he didn't give it back right away. He just kept it, twirling it between his fingers like a quiet little claim. And maybe it was one. We didn't make some grand announcement. But we didn't hide either. He started referring to me as my person when people asked if he was seeing anyone. It confused some of his teammates at first, until they started putting it together. And, surprisingly, no one gave him shit. Not the way we'd feared. If anything, they just kind of nodded, like they knew, like maybe they always had. The real turning point came a few days before finals. We were walking back from dinner, cold wind chasing our breath into the night air, when he suddenly stopped walking. I turned around. You good? He was standing there, cheeks red from the cold, staring at me like he was building up to something. I love you, he said, just like that. Like it wasn't a loaded confession or a leap off some emotional cliff. Like it was a fact. My mouth opened, then closed again. You what? He grinned, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I don't know when it happened, but I do. I love you. I stepped forward, grabbed his hoodie, and pulled him in until our foreheads touched. I love you too, I whispered. He kissed me, right there on the sidewalk, under a street lamp, where anyone could have seen. But he didn't care. Neither did I. That night, back in our room, we lay curled up on his bed. He played with my fingers like it was the most natural thing in the world. You know what the wildest part is? He asked. What? I never walked in expecting any of this. I thought you'd be embarrassed, that I'd be uncomfortable. But instead, it felt like I'd been waiting for it to happen. I looked at him, heart full. You didn't walk out, I said. He shook his head. Nope, and I never will.